Now, if you have in this theoretical discussion, then I may run 2 or 3 examples so that you can know that how it's applied. Thank you very much for listening. If there's any questions, more than welcome.
Salam alaikum. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Walaikum salam.
So, Doctor, it's a lot of information about data for me. It's new, and then how the data is analysis, and the methods of data analysis, and the differences between analytics and analysis, mashallah. I think there are questions, Doctor, in Q&A you can see. I think Farah Ahmed is asking, kindly specify what type of IT knowledge is required. Do I need to learn in coding? I believe that was answered in the last
Yeah,
few
yeah.
slides.
I think, yeah, as I mentioned, that you need not to be expert in coding, and you need not to be expert in computer science. Like, you need to have a very basic knowledge of computer science. I can say that you can take any bachelor book of computer science and just read it. Of course, if your level is master or you are working in a bank or somewhere else, you are already mastered any like in finance, no problems. Just take a very basic book, and then just read it. When it's come to statistic, I think there's many book of statistics. Some are advanced, but my suggestion is there is a very easy book written by a Gujarati. It's a famous, I think maybe majority of finance student already read. It's a Gujarati. Just revise it, and I think that's enough when it's come to having knowledge of computer science and statistics. But as I mentioned, it depends. Like, for example, depend on upon your nature of data and the type of data that, as I mentioned, I also didn't go deep into, like, maybe when we have a full-fledged course, we're also hoping to have certificates, and then we will go deep down into like many aspects. For example, like, there's a different type of data. You have time series data, we have a panel data, and we have a cross-sectional data. So time series data means that time is changing. For example, your data is from 2000 to 2018, let's suppose, or 2022, of inflation data, or for example, interest rate data, bank profitability data. So it's a time series data. But if you have multiple banks and data for Islamic bank and conventional bank, and then data start from 2000 to 2020, so it means you have many years, many banks. So it is a panel data. So it's also depend upon which kind of data you have. If you have this kind of data, and then of course you have a cross-sectional data in which you collect data in a single time span from multiple peoples. You have many entity and you have a single time. And this case, it is a cross-sectional data, so you can use. So having this, keep into consideration the nature of data, then you need to have expertise in specific software or specific tool. For example, you analyze panel data, you need to be expert in Stata. But if you are analyzing time series data, you need to be expert in R. So it means depend upon which kind of data normally you try to analyze.
Thank you, Doctor. Doctor, we have another question, suggestion from Shehzad. SQL query language. Yes, that is an important language. Which software is usually used for investment analysis? And then
investment analysis, I think software is not important. As I mentioned, what important is which kind of objective you try to achieve. As I mentioned, you need to set a goal and then move towards interpretations or getting insight or information or knowledge from the data. So it's depend. Like, for example, investment analysis, which kind of investment you're talking about. Like, for example, if you look at your own personal investment, then you need to look at, for example, now we are moving towards because the focus is for Islamic finance, so therefore I don't want to go towards deeper in terms of personal financing. Then of course, you, like, the general rule is to have Don't put all your eggs in one basket. You need to have portfolio. And this portfolio, you need to look at, analyze the market. Let's suppose you have 100,000 real or dirham you want to invest. So the normal suggestion is don't put all money in single. You put some money in stocks, some bonds, or let's suppose sukuk, and some gold, and some other asset classes. Now you need to look at the return. Past 5 years, what was the gold prices? What was, let's suppose you also can use dollar. You put your money in the form of dollar because dollar value is also increasing, and property and others. So it means you look at the past data and just graph it in the past 5 years in your specific regions. What is the value of how much how much increase happens in gold prices, property, and dollar, in other three or four other instruments. And just by single graph, you can decide where to go, which one gave you a more benefit. And of course, also past forecasting, future forecasting, that what will happen to the market. But I think there is no specific software you can use for investment. You can, like, again, as depend upon which kind of data you are analyzing. If you are analyzing, you are interested in stocks, you may expert in R. If you are interested to put invest in different banks deposits and you have multiple bank data, then you can use a panel data in starter software. So I think you should not be too much focus on specific software. In other words, you must not be too much limited yourself to a software. You must need to focus on the very objective and then use the tool, because software is just a tool. It's just a tool, and try to extract information. If a simple tool give you insightful of useful information, just use it. A simple Excel is more than enough. You need not to go towards Python and R and Strata if you a single tool give you a useful information. So it depends upon that which kind of objective you try to achieve.
Thank you, Doctor. I think Farah Ahmed have also mentioned the comments. Thank you and for the satisfactory answer. Um, okay, there is a question by Mohammad Shahbaz. He's saying,
Mhm.
thank you for the insightful presentation.
Thank
How
you.
can we use disruptive analysis to investigate the Sharia non-compliance transactions?
Okay, this is, I think, whenever you are moving towards the Sharia non-compliance transactions, so it means now the question is like you look at you are moving towards Sharia screening. Now, Sharia screening, of course, there's a detailed methodology and maybe some models in which you if you are you are trying to look at which farms is Sharia compliance, which is not, which will be listed in Sharia, which are not. So it means it's a full-fledged methodology. It's called Sharia screening. But if you're trying to detect these problems in the risk management departments of a bank, then of course you need to look at the again, like how these transactions happen. Let's suppose there is a requirement that the farms are the bank should not receive interest income, let's suppose not more than 5%. So not more than 5% means 5% is limitation. Let's suppose if the bank income is now the interest income is more than 5%, so you can easily detect this by using the statistical tools. Like you can easily detect that okay, the interest income is more than 5. Now it means that this bank is involved now in Sharia non-compliance issue. So it means there's many, like depend upon which kind of Sharia non-compliance you're trying to look at in which departments, like in banks and in farms, because the nature of institution differ, of course, approach also differ.
Jazakallah, Doctor. Doctor, I have two queries with regards to the course. People asking what course will there be a course in continuation of this webinar? And they have also asked, can you suggest where can we do courses on Coursera and other websites? So please tell if you'll be doing a course with Taif. Uh, if you say it yourself, that'll be fine, I think.
I think we are also like in discussions with the already like Taif are doing like contributing and in many way to Islamic finance in journals and Islamic bank in particular. So we are also like trying to launch a full-fledged course or certificate uh, uh, mainly oriented to Islamic finance, like Islamic banking, Islamic capital market, Islamic microfinance institution, and Takaful and Sukuk and all these. So we are also working on, but normally if you want to learn it's like data analytics in general, of course, there's a lot of online like Coursera. Coursera, they have machine learning, they have data science, and many university nowadays is offering online. And even you can learn, like as I mentioned, the basic thing you need to know about using these data analytics in different industry is to have a basic knowledge of computer science and statistics. After that, you are working on panel data, now you need to be expert in the software or techniques which are suitable to analyze the panel data. So it will take time, of course. It's not a 1 day or 2 days. Take years to be expert in specific software, specific tools, and of course techniques like people are focusing on descriptive before, but now people are using, even in a banking industry, they are using advanced techniques. So this is also important, that before advanced technique was limited to academia, but now it's also like farm are using advanced technique to understand patterns in a best way. And so it means there's a conversion now, academia with industry. So it means a lot of expertise they are learning from each other. So hopefully we will also offer, and of course a lot of online is also available. And the basic you can learn even from YouTube by reading, as I mentioned, a very basic book of statistics and computer science at a bachelor level, and then you can be expert. But as I mentioned, expertise will take time. By using this tool practically, you'll face a lot of problems and issue, and then with the passage of time, it will be solved.
Inshallah.
Sure.
Doctor, a few last two questions I will take. One question, Mrs. Zakat have asked, which softwares are morely used, like common software that are used in Islamic banks these days?
Islamic banks, as I mentioned, since you have banks data, when you have banks data, you have many Islamic banks. Many Islamic banks means many entity, like bank 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's denoted by I. You have many entities, and similarly, you are not analyzing Islamic bank data for 1 year. People are analyzing Islamic banking data for 5 years, 10 years. So it means you have many years, many T and many I. When you have many T, many I, this kind of data is called panel data. And for panel data, so scholars are suggesting to use um, starter software. So normally, the university which offer like PhD degree, or the university which offer a degree in Islamic finance, and the students who are working on banks, Islamic banks, they are using starter software.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Okay, there's some comments. Statistic book. Sharia audit sequence, timing, contract. Okay. Okay, I think this is a technical question. It says in Sharia audit, sequence and timing of contract execution is more important aspect to validate the transaction. Is it possible to tackle this through data analysis? It says in Sharia audit, sequence and timing of contract execution is important aspect to validate the transaction. Is it?
Yes. I think this is now we are moving towards a Sharia issue. Whenever we are talking about the sequence, like for example, there's a clear-cut hadith that you cannot sell which you don't have. So now the issue is sometimes bank try to sell a car to a customer before holding the possessions and ownership of a car. If, for example, they're using Tawaruk or any other contract and they sell to the customer now, that there is an issue of sequence, because the sequence to get, like, first you buy and then sell. When you buy the car, after that you are selling, so it means you have the ownership. And after getting ownership, at maybe you can say physical or constructive ownership, and again there's a discussion, and then you can sell. Now the question is, if you didn't have this ownership and then you sell, before getting ownership you sell, then there's a Sharia issue, and you have missed this sequence. So of course, I think this is more or less, you can say, is the mainstream journal, you can say, Sharia expert here needed in this context. But when it's come to like, if you have, let's suppose, uh, 60, 70, even 100 Islamic banks, and then 100 Islamic banks, you try to how they have executed, let's suppose you're trying to look at only Tawaruk transaction in these Islamic banks, and then Tawaruk transactions, how they buy the goods, how they get ownership, and after ownership how they sell to the customer, and after that how bank play a role of agent and sold this house or car or whatever on behalf of customer to another person. So it means there's a four leg, and each leg supposed to be executed in a clear way, and each contract supposed to be as per Sharia rule. You cannot combine two contracts in one. Each contract supposed to be separate. So it means this 100 banks, you can combine the data of all the works, how they execute it. And when you have the data, as I mentioned, when you have the data, first step, second step, third, and fourth, and then you can easily find the problems, that which bank has missed point one or two, or jumped to two, or executed third before moving to two. So it means in this way you can find a pattern in data. In this way you can detect. But as I mentioned, whenever we are talking about data analytics, we are talking about a big data, not a single bank, not a two bank, not 100 bank, all Islamic bank, all conventional bank, entire data. So all stocks market data are means all firms data. So it means we are talking about a big data.
Jazakallah, doctor. Thank you very much. We are over time now. Questions are keep on coming, and I
Yes.
believe uh, the best way would be to answer them uh, over the internet. I think social media.
Yeah.
So I would forward these questions to you. Thank you very much for your time. Whoever is listening at the moment, I would like to thank you on behalf of TAIF Digital Institute for Islamic Finance, or from Dr. Shabeer. Thank you very much for your time here. It was a valuable session, Doctor. And then whoever haven't joined the session today, unfortunately, they have missed a great deal. We'll forward the video and the presentation to all of you so that you can benefit. You have any other questions, please do send us. If you want to do a training with doctor, please tell us that you want to do a training, write to us, and we will inshallah do a course, either self-paced or live course with the doctor. Doctor, last word before you leave in today's session.
Thank you very much. So I think that's all. Inshallah, we are going to launch a course. So all are you are welcome. And we will have many, like we may use Python and R in Stata, and also the others which needed when it's come to, particularly, of course, our focus is on Islamic finance, like Islamic bank, Islamic capital market, sukuk, Islamic stocks. So we will try to uh, use all these tools which applicable in these areas. Once again, I welcome all of you to join the course. And again, I have these words for Taif. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum, doctor. Thank you very much.
Wa alaikum salam.